Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable, and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. I am actually here today. We are, episode 24. Mike is on vacation, so we wish him well and safe travels when he does come home from Hawaii. And how you doing this week, Josh?
I am doing pretty good. Finally got the new car. My wife says, except for like the console and cup holders not being in the right spots, quote unquote, she's loving it. So I guess that's making me a happy camper.
Make me a happy camper too. I still have to wait until this next couple days to find out what's going on with my car. James, how's this week treated you?
Oh, loads of fun dealing with people upset and trying to figure out this dispute form and all the other things that need to go along with it. And it's just been a fun week overall. Other than that, the route's been pretty easy. Had a couple of very, very short days of mail, which is a little unnerving, but otherwise it's been pretty good.
I can hear you. It was light all week in my office. I think some of that I heard was because of that mercury spill in Lake. I think they ended up having to close down part of the plant, is what I heard through the grapevine.
Yeah, it was a mercury spill.
Yes. So
It's actually one of my friend's dads who ordered a bunch of old blood pressure cuffs, and they broke in transit.
That's what it was. All right.
Yeah. And so they closed that down, and it was going to the Lake Post Office, and they closed that one down because it was in their stuff.
Yes, and it was on the news. So if anybody wants to read up on that, I know 9 and 10 News out of Northern Michigan had some of that info on there. And Bill, how was your week, dear?
Oh, it's lovely. Our supervisor was on vacation. We were short of clerks. We were short of management. We were short of alcohol. No, we're never short of alcohol. I'm sorry. That's a falsity. Short tempers, but other than that, good weather and moderate mail. Lots of parcels. My Amazon drivers must be on vacation because I have 2 or 3 I cross every day, and they were nowhere to be seen. We took the full brunt of it for a whole week.
Yeah, sounds like it. I know my week, Monday was kind of heavy. I was on the 47K, the biggest route in the office, Monday through Thursday. And Monday, I did it right at evaluation. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I did have to run the double on Wednesday, Tuesday, one of those days anyways. But I was running it in just under 5 to 5.5 hours. So, yeah, I get it. It was actually kind of nice. But it's definitely been an interesting week. My postmaster's been out. My supervisor was out. So we've had our former supervisor OICing and our 204B at the desk. But other than that, it was a pretty light week for us anyways. So I think tonight we were going to touch on this new dispute process that they finally released. And dig into some mapping, some DPM, LTM stuff. And at the end, I know we have a few listener comments and questions that we'll be touching on. So do we want to start off with this dispute form process stuff, guys?
We can do that. The reason why we're doing a dispute form instead of grievances and stuff like that is the first step in any issue with the post office that you have is to talk it out with management. And because your manager doesn't have the ability to fix this at the office level, they needed something that they could use to move it up to where it could be fixed, which is at the national level and the district level. So we have to do a dispute form that management can either agree or disagree with, whatever it goes with, that can move up the chain. And this is a standardized form for everybody to use to get it to that point.
And remember, on that form, it is one dispute per sheet. So if you have multiple disputes from your 4241 A's and M's, each dispute is on a separate sheet.
And it's actually a really simple process. You know, it's only for this dispute forms only for issues with your 4241A, but you also can use your 4241M in the process of disputing the problems with your 4241A. And of course, they did put out an MOU, and if you don't have access to it, talk to your designated local union representative to get it, or one of your colleagues that work as part of the union if you're a non-dues paying member. But you can get a copy of the MOU because it's on the NRLCA website.
And disputes need to be turned in by
The 31st,
yes.
the end of this month. So you don't have a lot of time, but hopefully it's enough for you to get it done.
A week from Wednesday. So Wednesday, May 31st. I was making sure I was looking at the right month there.
And there are some things you can dispute that are aside from your 4241A, other than errors in the fields themselves. And that is your office walk distances. You're supposed to have measured those with your postmaster or designated supervisor to be able to measure how far it is to each location. You can dispute the route length. If it's lower than what your certified odometer said, you can argue that because it still says in our contract that our routes are to be measured with a certified odometer. This LTM mapping is only digital and it may be wrong. So you can always ask for a certified odometer to measure your route. You can argue the number of boxes, active or total. You can argue your daily dismounts, dismount distances. If your manager did not go out with you to measure your dismount distances on your route or didn't ask you to measure your distances on your route, your daily activities, your miscellaneous time, and your option election. If you had 10 years in at the post office, you could choose high option. And if they didn't give you the high option that you asked for, you can dispute that.
Now, some of these things they can adjust at the office. That would be like your dismount distances, your office walk distances, that sort of stuff. That's why they want the dispute process to start with talking with your manager when you have these disputes, because some of these can actually be changed within the office, but not everything.
And Bill, question for you. How do we get information for our dispute with the 4241As? Where do we get that?
From your supervisor.
Yeah, you can ask for your parcel tracking report, the radar
reports,
report,
yeah.
your end of run,
Your DPS.
your Rex MDD scan review,
Mm-hmm.
Your LTM printout, and RIMS. So that's been the hot debate I've seen on the social webs as RIMS reports, because there are numerous RIMS reports. So, yeah, that one's a vague one. But
all of this is
manager
supposed to be available from management, yes.
Yes. And if
It's
management is failing to print those out for you upon request, there is a form for that.
File another grievance.
And so supposedly your manager has access to all this information. Supposedly.
Yes.
How do we fill this out, guys? Somebody want to help us fill these out? So what you're going to do is you're going to have a dispute form for each error on your 4241A, whether it's your DPS is low, your collection boxes, collection compartments are missing, things like that. Each one needs a separate form for each slot on your 4241A that you believe is missing. The first thing you're going to do is fill out the date, your name, your route number, the effective evaluation date, which is the 6th, and your zip code. That's right at the top of the form. Your manager, whoever's working with you on this, is going to fill out their name, their position, the finance number for the office, things like that. Then in the first in dispute, you would write which box you're disputing. For instance, if your radar report has a lot of zeros in it for DPS, when you should have had a normal amount, then you would put in dispute DPS letters. Carrier's reason for dispute: radar report and end of run reports show multiple lines of 0 DPS when DPS was received each day. Therefore, the value in this slot is artificially low. Another example I would have is if you have a 0 in one of your slots, like blue box collections, that would be in dispute. And you would write, I'm missing 2 blue boxes that are on my route. That could also be included in your daily dismounts as well. The biggest one that a lot of people don't see and don't look for is the withdrawal status in the lower right corner. If you are a withdrawal office, that means you go and get your DPS, you go and get your hot case, you go and get your flats, any of those, any one of those, you are a withdrawal office. That should be a Y. If it's not a Y and you're doing withdrawal, you can dispute that. Any other?
Yeah, any entry that is a 0 or questionable in any data field that would otherwise you'd expect to have a credit, you can dispute those. So I don't really, that's the thing is nobody in my office is going to dispute anything at this point. One of them may dispute the route length. That's really his only biggest one right now because when I first got on that route, it was 98 miles. They did I'm going to air quote, official remeasure, and we lost 5 miles. It was 93 miles. And then when we first did the mapping for the route and everything, it was down to 91.83 miles. The only reason he's hesitating at this point on that is because he did add a new box to an area that, we haven't traveled down in a long time, but there was already mail established in the past. So he had him put the new box for that new build up at the end of the road. So that did knock him up to 92.38 miles. 92.35. But yeah. But those of you that had huge losses, I would definitely be double checking and going through those just to double verify. I mean, a lot of losses that we had, like I said, automatically was the box factor loss and the drive speed matrix. I know that was the big one on my POV route. Just those two alone is what hit that route hard. Only lost 3 hours, but still, it was.
And we do know some lost volume over since 2018. We've explained that in previous episodes. So there are some people that, even though they lost a big ton of their route, may have legitimately lost that amount on their route. But check your 4241As. Check and make sure your 4241Ms have everything that's supposed to be on them. Because the union put out how to decipher your 4241A and how it matches with your 4241M. So if there's a value that's wrong in your 4241M, you can dispute that slot or slots on your 4241A to get that corrected.
All right, we're kind of going to dive into some mapping here, guys. I know CBUs and mapping. I'm just going to say I worked with my carriers this past week since I had some shorter days due to the low mail volume. And so we were able to get some updates done. A little out of the time frame, but it needed to be done, so we were able to do it. And I will tell you right now, if your manager tells you that they did your mapping, get a hold of your district rep ASAP, because our OIC tried to take it upon herself to add some boxes where she thought they needed to go on the mapping, and I had to fix them. When we have 2 routes in this one area where you have 2 roads that run perpendicular to each other, and or parallel. Am I getting it right? I don't know. Anyways, they're the exact same road name, only one is west and one is not. And when she went to go add this box to the one route, she actually put it on the other route in the mapping. I was like, where is this? No, that's not even the right route. So, no. If management has done your mapping and they're not letting you do any updates, you need to contact your DR right away. That is incorrect. Carriers should be sitting down with the facilitator to do the mapping. On that note, we'll start with the DPM, the delivery point management. When you are mapping your delivery point management, yes, your breadcrumbs will place a lot of things already on there. However, they're not always in a correct spot. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Josh. Perpendicular crosses. So they run parallel. Okay. Backtrack. Anyways, back up to DPM. So you're going to make sure those mailboxes are in the right spot. You're going to mark your park point, which is the purple, and you're going to mark the yellow door as to where you deliver that package. So if you're delivering that package on a daily basis to the front door where they want it, that's where you're going to mark it. If you drop it off at the garage, because that's where they want their stuff dropped off, that's where you're going to point the door. If they have a tote to put out somewhere and that's where they want packages dropped, that's where you're going to mark as to the door. And you're going to do that, and your mail stop and mailbox are normally one and the same. The green one is your mailbox, the blue with the little truck is your mail stop. Those are normally one and the same. The difference with those are if you have CBUs, centralized boxes, hardship boxes, and I think that's the 3 different ones, correct, James? Where your mail stop and your mailbox may be in different locations, correct?
Also, your authorized discount at businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, businesses and schools and things like that, where you have to get out of the truck to deliver the mail and into the building itself.
Which in the DPM or edit book would be under other. So
yes.
Going by those 3 things, it would be centralized CBU and other.
Yep. And the big point to all of this is your mail stop, where you deliver the mail to the mailbox, then measures to your park point on the drive speed matrix as out of route miles. And then your delivery to the door is a straight line from your park point to the door. And that's your out of route footage on your map, on your 4241. So make sure you're as accurate as possible. For instance, I talked about getting out for businesses. I'll have an example. We have a business on a route here that has a mailbox, but their park point is up by the building, so we can go in and deliver parcels to them. You put the park point where you park the truck normally, and then you put the door delivery where you deliver it in the building, if you can remember it from a sky view, approximately. So if you go into the building and drop it off at for instance, a car dealership, you drop it off at the cashier desk in the back by the service department, which is where they want you to drop it off. You would mark it at the back cashier desk so you get that footage. You don't want to just at the door and then put the front door right at that door where you park, because you're going to be walking further than you're actually getting paid for.
And that would go the same for apartment complexes, condos, any multi-unit building. If you are going in that building to deliver a package, you kind of want to place those doors in the relative area that it's going to be. Unfortunately, they don't do vertical measurements for those of us that may have to climb some stairs here and there. But you kind of want to get it at least in that right area on top of the building.
And thanks for pointing that out, because a lot of people don't realize that, they don't recognize stairs.
Yeah, they don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, my watch does, but the post office doesn't.
Exactly. my knees recognize it, but yeah. I'm trying to think also, when you are doing centralized or CBUs, you are going to, each key turn is going to be a mailbox grouping. So all of your boxes that are within that unit, whether it's a CBU or centralized, per key turn. So when you have to put that key in that one box. So if you're in a apartment complex and you've got apartment 1 through 16 in one box, then you're going to do your mailbox grouping as 1 through 16. And then if you've got more than one unit, then, 17 through 29 or whatever the next one is, that's what you're going to do there. And then when you're done with that, you're going to do and if that's one stop, one dismount, then you're going to take from that first one to that last one, and that's all going to be under your mail stop grouping.
And again, make sure you're marking your park point where you park your truck every day to deliver that mail, or approximation if unfortunately that parking spot's taken by somebody who doesn't see the sign saying U.S. Postal Service only. Then also mark where that CBU is in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're going to actually measure that distance, make sure you mark where that CBU is in that building. So that way they could say, well, you wrote down 150 feet, but our mapping only shows 30 feet from where you park the truck to where the mailbox is supposedly located. Don't put yourself into a headache like that.
And do remember that CBUs are standalone units, and centralized would be built into like a wall or a building. I have one route that has the old apartment centralized boxes where you put the key in and you kind of pull the thing down, and it's got the long little slots up on top. That would be centralized. And then the standalone units that usually have their own little pedestals, those would be your CBUs. And when you go in, after you've done all the mapping and you have to go in and do your dismounts, if there is not footage, so on one route we have quite a few CBUs that we can actually pull up to and service right from the truck, there has to be a value in every box. So if you don't actually have a dismount, you can pull right up to the box, and you're going to put zeros. Now there's also a spot for collection and parcel lockers. So if you have a collection slot in each individual CBU or your centralized boxes, then for that dismount, you're going to put the total number of collection slots that you have. And then if you have 2 parcel lockers in each unit, or 1 or 3, so if you have 4 CBU units and they each have 2 parcel lockers in each of the key turn units, then you're going to put 8 parcel lockers. So you want your total parcel lockers as well as your total collection slots. And then your dismount distance. If there is no collection slot or there is no parcel lockers, you're going to put zeros in there because you have to have a value. It will not let you finish it out if it's just blank. And then
Chris,
also
I want to.
your dismount distance, there's also a thing for your dismount distance in there too. So that's where you would put your dismount distance.
Kristen, I just wanted
Yeah.
to put as a caveat to what you were saying before about with the, for example, you put the number of slots. So like you said, if it's 16, 1 through 16, you put those as your first one. Then the second one is like 17 through 30, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there is a cap of 24
For mailbox
per,
grouping.
right. So in
Yes.
my case, at my condos, they are the old MVCBUs, and they are either 27 or 34 mail slots. So I had to, where I have 8 actual key turns, for the doors, I
Mm-hmm.
had to actually break it down to 10 to accommodate that cap.
And I have heard, though I don't have experience with it because I don't have any areas in my office that have more than 9 CBU units. I heard that there was a cap when you're doing the mail stop as 9 units, but I don't know because I personally don't have experience with that one.
Well,
I don't either.
because I reached out to, because I'm friends with the rural ops person, or whatever
Mhm.
the actual title is now, who is the guru in my area for all things Rex.
Mhm.
And he said you could potentially anchor, if you have 1,000 addresses in your edit book, you could anchor the stop point for all 1,000.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Nope.
But
I know exactly what you're
for
saying.
the actual delivery point is capped at 20, was it to 24?
The mailbox
So,
grouping.
right. So I'm able to anchor my stop point for all 190 something addresses of
Okay.
the condos. Because if you try and have your stop point match each door, it requires a minimum of 5 feet apart
Yep.
for the stop point. So yeah, so we were, so the my stop point where I park and dismount the vehicle is all 190, but because they're units of 20, 27 mail slots or 34, because it's 7 down by either 4 or 5 across, and then you have to subtract the 1 out for where the arrow keyhole is to actually
Mhm.
open it up. So I had to reduce them instead of 27 or 34. I just did 20, 20, 20, 20, 20 until whatever the last one was, 18 or whatever the last one was.
Gotcha. All right. So the mailbox groupings on Central and CBUs is 24 max. So if you have one of those older units that holds more than 24, you will have to split those up a little bit more.
And then there's one more piece too.
Mhm.
There are some that have standalone parcel lockers next to their CBUs.
Mhm.
Those ones you can either tie them to one of your CBUs, or you can break them up between the CBUs, as long as they're attached to that set of CBUs as part of those distances.
Yep.
I
And
usually
that's
attach it to the one it's next to, so that way you get the same dismount distance with it if you do that. That's the one caveat. That's another one that they have there. The other one of standalone parcel lockers is your Amazon parcel lockers.
Mm-hmm. I've
What do
never
you?
dealt with that. We don't have those, so.
I consider those to be the mailroom at the place you go to,
Okay.
and I would put a door marker there. So when you deliver it, you technically get credit to the door, but you're delivering it to that parcel locker.
And I do believe because it was a miscellaneous timed event because you got codes or something you got to put in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not. Those are completely out of my knowledge base at all. No experience. I'm in a very rural area.
Yeah, you should measure the time it takes you for the mini mail survey time, the 2 weeks that you do it, every one that you get to deliver to that, start a stopwatch, and then take each parcel that you have to deliver to that parcel locker, the Amazon parcel locker, then go back to your truck and end the stopwatch so you get the timed event for that under miscellaneous time. That should be something that's approved by your local management as a part of your miscellaneous time, and it should be automatically approved by district because that's what they've said on all the paperwork for it.
All right. And your curbside boxes, if they are 5 feet or less apart on individual posts, so each mailbox is on its own post, and they are within 5 feet of each other, that would be a mailbox grouping, not a mail stop, a mailbox grouping. Now, if you have a big long shelf type thing, post signage, and you've got several mailboxes that are on this big long line and they're all linked together, not on individual posts, then that would be a mailbox grouping and mail stop grouping.
This includes your 2 boxes on a T-post, 1 box on each side of the post. This could be a long 2x6 with 20 boxes on it.
Yep.
It would be grouping both the mail stop and the mailboxes, whereas if they're individual posts, it would be mail stop grouping only. Now, if you have it where they're intermixed, you have several that are on a 1 post, and then you have several that are standalone, and then another set of on a post. You'd have to group the mailboxes that are on each post. But you could group the mail stop all together as one.
No, you would do the mailbox groupings. It would be a mailbox grouping all as one, and then the mail stops would be the one grouped, the ones that are sharing a post.
It's the mail stops that get grouped. The mailboxes on the post get grouped as mailboxes grouped. The mail stop itself is that. But once you get outside of the 5 feet, then you can get the creep distance on that. Because you get creep distance for every box that's in the mailbox group.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get, if you have them in the mailbox set, technically you stop at that, but I believe it's still the 3 boxes to creep on that one, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that, though.
Individual post is mailbox grouping.
Yes.
All on the same post is the mail stop grouping. Well, they're both. It would be under both, excuse me. Mailbox and mail stop if they're on the same post, whether it's, again, like that T-post or a big long 2x4. I'm just throwing something out there.
Yeah.
If they're on individual posts, then they're going to be mailbox group with or within 5 feet. And it'll flag you within 5 feet. Trust me.
Yeah, the mail stops being together, yeah.
Yeah. And if you know those boxes are not 5 or are further than 5 feet apart, then you need to go in and move those little pins just enough.
Just a little bit.
Yep, to where it will stop doing that.
You gotta wiggle it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And I'm trying to think of the next one under DPM. If you are a government vehicle, you will then be putting your preferred gas stop in, whatever gas station that you prefer to go. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to that one all the time, but that is your preferred one.
The one you're going to get measured to for your 100 miles per fuel stop.
Yep. So if
Actually, I think it's about 98.6 miles is what it is, but yeah, who's counting?
They say 100, so.
Yeah.
And then if you have an inter-office
Blue
stop, lock pouch.
Oh, yeah.
You have a lock pouch or an inter-office stop, you'll put that in there. You'll designate whether it's high or low. And then, yes, if you have any blue collection boxes, you will be putting those in as well. I don't have any of those on my rural side, so I haven't had to worry about that.
Yep.
I'm just
And
going
we'll
off
measure
the
dismount distance on those too. Measure the dismount distance on those too, and
Yep, and then
make sure that's
under
in
your dismount tab, that's where you would put your dismount footage, any collection boxes, any parcel lockers, any of that type of stuff would all go under your dismount information.
tab.
Yep, and don't forget that you can't have anything blank. If there is no distance or no parcel lockers or collection boxes, you would put a 0. And is there anything else that I am forgetting on the DPM portion?
And then make sure you check your threshold warnings and alerts, because sometimes you have a minor alert that could tell you, hey, you didn't actually put this in the right place. So make sure you check them.
Yep.
There are times, especially a trailer park, where your mail stop and your park point are going to be more than 500 feet apart. That's going to happen. We get a half a mile technically, but in a trailer park, it's going to be within a half a mile. Same with your distance to the door.
Yeah, it'll flag you anything over 500 feet for the park point and 150 feet for the walking part.
For the door distance, yep.
Yep.
So that may be something to check, but if you know it's correct, you can skip over it. That one's not a big issue. The ones that matter are missing points, are hard warnings, things
and
like
errors.
that,
Yep.
and errors in your mapping.
Also,
and it'll list them all for you.
Yes, it will. Also, when you are mapping, if you're going to go and do a point for the next thing and it is not letting you, even especially with updating, you're going to try, you see you got some updates and you're going in there and it's not letting you move any points. You need to scroll up through that electronic edit book and make sure there isn't any boxes that have a red X. Everyone has to be completed with the blue, the green, the yellow, and the purple before you can continue to the next one. If you have one with a red X, then you need to go up and either put that pinpoint in, or if that box is saying it's active and it's inactive, you need to change that. Make sure it is correct in your edit book, because AMS talks to mapping, but mapping as of right now does not talk to AMS. So that's where it's important to make sure your edit books are updated prior to doing any mapping updating. And when you do go in an update after your edit book has been returned back to you from doing updates, you want to re-download. Now, if you start updating and you don't finish, you do not want to re-download the next time you want to resume. Because then if you re-download, then you're re-downloading the last one and you're having to do anything that you had started all over again. But you can resume it up until you submit it. And all your errors and warnings need to be cleared out. And definitely double check those threshold warnings. And you can submit it with the threshold warnings. I would, like James said, just go ahead and double check them and make sure they're correct. And then once it's submitted, then it takes a few minutes for it to transfer to the line of travel management system, the LTM.
And
And
also,
then,
one thing I tell everybody when you're mapping, even if it's vacant right now, map it. Map
yes,
everything for that vacant address because later on, when you go to activate that address, you won't have to put it in on the mapping later.
unless you just have to update a parking or a delivery point because the new people want something different than what was done in the past. You can update that. So if you have people that moved out, you did your original mapping, you got everything set, and then they move out, new people move in, and they don't want their packages at the door, they want them at the garage, or they have a tub or something, or a receptacle of some sort, then yes, you can go in and update where they want that to be done. All right, line of travel. In your line of travel is where you're going to put your traffic control points. This would be your stoplights, your stop signs, your yield signs, railroad tracks. If you have a gated area that you need to pass through a gate to get to the mailboxes, school crosswalks. If you have a school on your route where you have to, you're driving through the school crossing. Yep, here it is. My DPM data. The school crossing, then that's where you would mark that. Railroad crossings, you would mark those. Yield signs, traffic signals, stop signs. And normally those will kind of flag you if it's a routine area where you normally stop while you're doing it. If it doesn't flag it, then you're just going to hit pause real quick and go to that spot and enter in that icon. You're just going to drag it down from the little box that'll be up in the left-hand corner. This will also, for some reason, if you'll see with breadcrumbs when you're doing your LTM, that maybe you have somebody that you deliver a lot of packages to, so it automatically kind of has you going in their driveway. You can actually pause it, right click on that, and a lot of times it'll give you the option, an optional path. So you can choose the next option, and some it'll be just straight through, and you can click on that. Doesn't always do that, but more times than not it will.
Now, I have a question for carrier discretion.
Mm-hmm.
I have a townhome development which doesn't have stop signs or yields at certain intersecting points of the road where I have to make a left or a right-hand turn. But I do stop there. Under carrier discretion, should I put that as a traffic control point for safety issues?
Unfortunately, according to the paperwork, if there's not a sign, you don't put one there. So my recommendation to any carrier that goes into these subdivisions, speak with the HOA. Because you know these new builds all have HOAs in them. Speak with them to get stop signs put up.
Or the road commission.
Or the road commission, or whatever governing body covers that area, to get stop signs there for safety. And once those stop signs are there, you can put them in your mapping.
So
But
I guess I won't
carrier discretion to do that.
I guess I won't get that completed because me and the HOA president have already crossed paths. And you know how that, and
Yes.
you know how that works out.
Talk with your sub to do it. See if your sub would be willing to do that. If he'd be willing to step up to help raise your evaluation so he makes more money. Or she. He or she makes more money. See if they're willing to do that. Or whatever they identify as.
Oh my God. Political correctness to the hilt.
Oh, you know we have to after our fan mail.
No, I don't.
It's carrier discretion anyway. Supposedly.
This is Bill May, and I'm proud to say it loud and clear.
Right.
I still say carrier discretion.
So, when you're doing your LTM, you'll watch the little car or the truck, whatever icon comes up, and they'll be driving your route. You can make it faster. So if you have, like in my one route has, well, two of my routes have 10 and 13 mile deadheads going out to the route. You can skip to that first box too if you don't have any traffic control points. This is all under the initial mapping. When you're going in to do updates, after you've updated, if you've reactivated boxes that were inactive prior, or seasonals come back and you've reacted boxes, you will have to go in under the LTM and it will update each stop. So even if you don't do the whole entire route and you just do it under the changes, I'm trying to remember the word that it has up there, but it's the right one, not the left one. Partial route, that's what it is. You want to at least do those, and it basically will take you from point A to point from that inactive to the next one, and then you click and do the next one. You just want to verify that that line of travel is correct between those points. You can always tell when the breadcrumbs are catching and carriers have had to turn around for missed packages because you see a lot of U-turns in there. I've had that a few times. Oh, look, they missed something that day. They caught these breadcrumbs and they're turning it around.
It happens.
But it does. I will raise my hand on that one the other day, as a matter of fact, a few times. And then go ahead,
for
James.
carriers that add a whole neighborhood to their route, it may take up to 2 months for it to show up on your LTM, especially if it came in the middle of edit book season, when you've already turned in the edit books, and then you get these new addresses put on your route. The first time they put it in, the computer's going to say, okay, now I'm going to look for these breadcrumbs, and then the next update has to wait until it gets those breadcrumbs to be able to map the next part.
I would start driving it as soon as
you would be driving
can.
it. Yeah, You would be driving it, but it may take up to 2 to 3 mapping updates to be able to actually map the route. And hopefully, if it's not a new build and you're getting something off of somebody else's route because your route got cut, or somebody's route got cut and it got put on yours because you were dropped hard with this latest Rex evaluation, hopefully they've already mapped all the points correctly, and it'll be an easy peasy little transition over.
But we're still waiting for them to announce when they have that system in place to be able to cut and rebuild routes. So that portion of it is still on hold.
Well,
the only reason I have experience with that is because of them gutting my one route and putting it on the other route that didn't come back as a full route, even though it should be.
Gotcha.
I can say I know with my one new neighborhood, when I first mapped, 90% of it was inactive. And then after it was complete and everything got activated, was activated, I had to sit down with someone from district because it was flagging those 60 some addresses because they were inactive prior, and now they were, and I had activated them in the edit book and had to redo the pinpoints for the package delivery.
Yeah, the initial mapping, when they transitioned over to the latest version of it, it caused a lot of issues in the transition between the two versions of the program. And a lot of things got messed up. People's blue boxes got moved from one zip code to the primary zip code of the office. Addresses got marked vacant that were actually active, so on and so forth. When they transitioned over, it was a big boondoggle.
And I can tell you, in regards to the methodology of doing route adjustments, as of this past week, there is no official way yet.
No, there is not. People are going to be some people are really overburdened and want the cuts now, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in this episode.
Yep.
So be on the lookout for that. Keep listening. But right now, there is no way to remove that overburden from you. The rural route optimization system has not been set up. It should have been set up a long time ago, but it hasn't. We're still waiting on it. We don't know when they'll ever get it done, if ever. You know how engineers are.
I've heard rumors of possibly mid-June because they want it done before the next mini mill survey. But again, that's just a rumor. So don't hold
Well,
any credit to that whatsoever.
Use
yeah,
carrier
like I said,
discretion when thinking about that.
Yes.
as of this past week, I was told definitively there is not anything official.
Yep.
That there is that
Well,
they have
that's why she
not.
said rumor,
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Supposedly.
allegedly.
So
Supposedly.
If you didn't see it on the View, it's not real.
If the NRLCA hasn't posted it, it hasn't happened yet.
So if they have letters in August but don't discuss it at the convention in September, oh, never mind. That's an oversight.
Anyway. So
Just me
So
being Joe.
as you finish your line of travel, when you get back to the office and it ends, it'll then have you review it. And then you can go over, it'll give you the little screen will pop up and it'll have all your DPM data, your regular boxes, your dismount distance, your TCP count, and then that'll have it broke down between stop signs, traffic signals, yield signs, school crossings, railroad crossings, gated access. And then it'll have your original LTM mileage and then your LTM mileage after your route confirmation. And then as long as that all looks good, supervisor enters in, or whoever enters that in, puts their little Ace ID in there, and then they can print it out once that's submitted. And then supposedly that is supposed to replace your 4003 or your line of travel. So that is my understanding.
4003 still matters for carriers on EMA.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Yes.
They've locked out the 4003s. Management can no longer update them, blah 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 blah. But still in the contract it still states that EMA is paid based off certified odometer mileage of your 4003.
And then that LTM mileage on the very end, that if you know that is not correct, it doesn't match the mileage on your last 4003, then when you want to fill out a dispute sheet on your route mileage. And you want to have a copy of that LTM. And if you have a former copy of your 4003 still, which everybody should have one possibly still at the case, then definitely include that too to show the discrepancy.
Unless your manager already took it and shredded it, which some managers probably have, which they were told to do. They were told also to destroy the previous 4241s that were printed out for you guys and so on. So if you kept copies of those, you're golden. If you didn't, I hope you have some sort of backup.
All right, so that basically is the Cliff Notes version of mapping. It's really not that difficult. The most confusing part really is the mailbox groupings and mailbox stops, knowing the difference with those, and then making sure that, yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing, was the mailbox groupings.
We'll make one note here, and this is for especially those on postal internet. Wait. There's a little bar that runs across the top of the screen. Every time you move a point, wait for that bar to go all the way across and disappear. If you move a point and that bar is moving and you move another point, it can lock up the system.
Yes.
So be patient while you're doing that.
Sometimes the system will bog down and get really super slow in general. And at that point, that's when you just close it out, reopen it up, or refresh it. And this is where you will not re-download, but hit resume.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to go. Yeah, I've had to do that a few times. But I think that is it for now under the mapping. We went over the dispute forms. So I
And
think we're kind of, what, go ahead.
if you have any questions about this, any questions about mapping, any questions about the dispute form, get with your mapping facilitator, get with your local designated union representative and ask them questions about it. We're not
Yes.
always the answer here. We may give incorrect advice to what your designated local union representative would give you. They are your resource for this information. Make sure you use them.
So like I said, if management said I mapped it for you or I did your updates, please, please, please get a hold of your district representative ASAP. Management is not supposed to do that on their own. And like I said, case in point, they don't know where stuff is. I had to go move a box that was on a completely different road on a completely different route just because the road names were the exact same with the exception of one was west and one was not. So yeah.
And also pay attention to your dates for your rural route AMS edit book updates,
Yes.
the maintenance on there, because that, that's on our web, national web page for the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. That gives you all the dates where you're supposed to do your corrections, additions, dates that are supposed to be sent up to AMS, the dates that you're supposed to sit down with your supervisor designee and do your delivery point manager download, do your changes, go in, do your LTM if there's changes. All of that is supposed to be done according to a formula that is set forth for management to follow. And if you don't have that opportunity, especially, days 23 to 30th of the month, except for February, then, you need to get a hold of your local union representative to get this situation addressed. Because the longer you delay doing it, the longer you wait to do it, the longer it takes to get paid.
Yes.
And mapping is your paycheck. Also, it's an end of shift duty if you can help it. We said this in a previous episode. Mapping is an end of shift duty if you can help it. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule where you get 8127 time as the other option, but try to put it at the end of shift because then that becomes part of your overall evaluation. And that's your money.
And if you are newly taking over a route, routes went up for bid and you switched routes, you have every right to go in there and look at the mapping and make sure that is correct for you. If that's going to take an all-day thing, then they need to find a sub and they need to put you under a P code for you to be able to do that. But yes, they cannot deny you doing that. Again, if they deny you going in and double checking the mapping from taking over the route, get a hold of your designated union rep ASAP. All right. So we're going to start doing, our topics like we normally do. We've done a few episodes that have all been rumors, stuff we've read in groups, and questions. So I think we're going to start doing questions and statements and stuff towards the end after we cover the meat and potatoes of the episode. We've had a couple good ones here. Let's do the audio. We had an audio message come in on Spotify. If you want to go ahead and play that, and it has been edited for anonymity, so the name and location has been removed. But if you want to go ahead and play that for everybody.
I deliver in a 12 route office, and since our new evaluations from Rex, all 12 of our routes are overburdened, which we knew because of the Amazon that we've gotten since before the pandemic. Now we have proof, at least. The question I'm getting from my fellow carriers is how they're supposed to get compensated, because the table for 48K tops out at 57.36. Every one of our routes are in the 60s for weekly hours. we're at the other end of the spectrum. We're way overburdened. We are making our evaluations because we've gotten really good at doing the packages, but they can't leave us like this. We would, if they cut us, we're going to go from 12 routes to probably 16. So basically 12 carriers are doing the work of 16 people for free every day. In my mind, we're doing part of another route.
48K is, well, we already addressed the getting routes cut a few minutes ago. As of right now, there is no procedure in place for them to do that, unfortunately. If they want to, as soon as that procedure is laid out, because the MOU says they will not make any cuts before October of this year, which was agreed upon between the post office and the NRLCA, with the exception of if a carrier requests it or operational necessity, which is in the case of overburdened routes. But if everyone wants to get cut, I would recommend everyone writing a statement to that effect and say that you understand that RX could negatively affect your route. Unfortunately, yeah, as you mentioned, 5736 is the highest standard hours that you get paid at a 48K, which is the top of the pay scale. Anything above that is negligible. If you are actually going over 48 hours in the 5 days of your evaluation, you can get either auxiliary assistance or overtime for the amount of time that you are going over. Because I'm a 48K myself, but I average about 45 hours a week right now. So I'm actually staying under the evaluation. So unfortunately, there's nothing I can get because I'm doing it within the 45 hours, not going over 48.
Well, I'm in the same predicament. My route comes in at 64.09 hours, which is kind of funny because it demonstrates the burden put on us by the package industry, the business that we've accrued since the 2018 count. So, I haven't been paid for all the parcels from 2018. And now I'm not getting paid for anything over 57 hours. And I'm basically 7 hours over that. Unfortunately, because I'm a rural carrier, I'm more efficient and I can complete my route under the evaluation. The only problem that I have, and it's probably a good thing that we're not being adjusted until October, is because some of the numbers are just a little out of kilter for me. And one of the disputes that I have is I have a money order application time allowance. I haven't had a money order application ever. So how did you come up with a time factor for something I've never done in 25 years? Mm-hmm. I also have on here, what was the one? The COD customs due. Again, here's another item I've never done in my life, but I have time allotted to it. So where did they come up with these numbers? This is why the lack of transparency is so dismaying, because of the fact that nobody can give you this information in black and white. Nobody can sit down there and tell you where they got this from, because frankly, folks, they just pulled it out of the air. Let me change that one.
They're reaching for the stars. That's what they're doing.
They're pulling out of their asses. Okay.
All right. Yeah. We knew where you're going on that.
But that's what's so disarming about this, is that we can't get these answers. And I mean, we delayed this from September. They had 6 more months to get this system down, on top of the 11 years since they initiated this, and we still can't get any clarity to where these numbers are generated, how they're collected, how they're formulated, with nothing. There are no answers.
Yep.
There are none from our union who say they've been pressing the post office. Well, I'm sorry. You're well beyond the full court press time, folks. You've had your chance. It's time to, let new leadership take hold and guide this union, because, folks, if you look at any of the social media, there are a lot of scared people out there, frustrated people, angry people. And, it's not going to get much better if what comes in October is a complete turnaround and you have more than 66% going down.
I kind of have an argument as to why they still haven't gotten it right. They still haven't found a way to get rid of DPS errors or get the DPS to flip the mail the right side up when it's running through it.
Oh my God. And
they've had that process for decades too.
Yes. And there's a problem there, because it's funny that our local rural carrier specialists wanted to have an adjustment on a carrier's, daily activity log for upside down DPS, saying it was too much. Well, if you're stating there's too much, you're telling me that you already have a standard set forth saying this is enough, this is too much, this is acceptable, this is not. You can't have that standard already set, because just recently I got a box holder in my DPS and every one of them were upside down. Now, if I submit 622 upside down, is that going to trigger a red flag? Is that going to get this? Yeah. But the thing of it is, I can prove it. The problem of it is that local management also didn't prove it. Okay. They didn't certify that this actually happened. So, you're getting screwed both ways, because local management, again, failing to do their jobs, and, your rural carrier specialists at the district level saying, no, this is not feasible. This is not possible. It doesn't happen like this. It happens like this every other day, folks.
Yes, it does.
Get
really good at reading addresses upside down.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go. I got a few things that were messaged to me on my personal side. So this one's kind of a three-parter. They just want to let us know they had a couple topics of discussion based on some recent posts through the social webs. Number one, how a formula office works. In recent posts, someone said his Saturdays were taken away from him, and now he has Thursdays off, and blamed Rex. Those that are in a formula office, I will let you handle this one.
Okay. Well, let's start with the purpose of a formula office. The purpose of a formula office is if they do not have enough coverage to allow everyone off on Saturday, they will go through the process to change your office from a regular office, which allows all carriers to have Saturday as their relief day, unless you mutually agree with management to change it to sometime during the week, to the formula. The formula takes into account with a computer program that they plug in. How many routes total do they have? How many of those routes are K routes, J routes, H routes, auxiliary routes? How many RCAs or leave replacements do you have? And then it'll spit out that you are allowed to have so many K routes to be on a Saturday. J routes, which are every other Saturday, take precedent for those Saturday slots. And then they fill in Ks after that.
And that's by seniority, am I right?
Well, when you first go, at least when we were converted to a formula office a few years back, they requested everybody to put their first, second, and third choice of relief day. If you choose, and they said they will consider those if you get assigned whatever your days are of those three choices that you quote unquote volunteered for it, which they're actually supposed to. And I'd have to look and see if the wording, the verbiage has changed with the new rules from changing to where they have to pull 4 hiring lists within 6 months with names on them before they can go formula from the old rules of where there was a minimum, at least 3 criteria at minimum they had to do. One of the first things was ask for people to volunteer to change their relief day. If you choose Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday and volunteer for those 3 days, you get the added benefit. If you go overburdened when they cut your route, they can only cut it to, I'm going to say a 45K, but the actual standard hours comes to very, very, very high 44. I forget what the actual standard hours are. I don't know if any of you guys have that or
I don't
can
have
look
it
it up.
right in front of
I
me.
don't have it right in front of me.
If you choose Friday as your relief day, you have the option of a rotating Friday, Saturday, which means, for example, like I have the Friday, Saturday rotation. Week 1 of the pay period, I have Friday off. Week 2 of the pay period, I have Saturday off, which means that weekend in the middle of the pay period, when I get my days off, I have a 3-day weekend. But then the opposite weekend, the beginning and end of the pay period, I work straight through 6 days through. If you are lower in seniority, and as you mentioned, it is by seniority, and every time you add or remove a relief carrier, an RCA from the rolls, whether it be they resign, they go regular, become PTF, go regular, they're supposed to recalculate the formula, which means you could either gain or lose Saturdays. If they recalculate and you lose Saturdays, the junior regular route with a Saturday relief will lose that Saturday and will be put during the week. If they gain Saturdays, the senior carrier that has a non-Saturday relief will be asked if they want to switch back to Saturday.
If the senior carrier, doesn't want to change their relief day, then they move it down to the next senior carrier.
Right. Well, as I said, they ask them if they want to change
Right.
from midweek back to Saturday.
Yeah.
The relief day stays with the route.
Yes.
So if, for example, like I said, I have a Friday, Saturday rotation on my route. If there's the route in the station that I live on, potentially I'll be able to bid on that. They have a Thursday relief. If I bid on that and get awarded it, my relief day will become Thursday because the relief day stays with the route. In this case, with this question, unfortunately, they were a J, which took Saturday preference. When they went up to the K, yes, if they were a junior carrier, they would have had to go to a non-Saturday relief. If they add more, if they hire more RCAs into the office, when they recalculate, they might get that Saturday back if they're a senior carrier.
All right. Well, this is going to bring us to the second part.
Let me add this to it too.
Go ahead.
If you are not a formula office, you guys can get together and keep yourselves from going to a formula office by offering to change your scheduled day off. And then you don't have the formula and all that stuff. You work with your RCAs and your regular carriers, and you could have, like in my office, you can have Saturdays and Mondays off with enough RCAs. Or in one instance, one of our carriers went from a H route to a J, then a K. He opted for Fridays off on his own, which actually helped us, so we didn't have to work around something and figure out, and we had enough subs to cover the routes. You don't have to go formula if people are willing to change their day off on their own.
Right, and that's what I was saying about I wasn't sure if the asking for volunteers first before they start the process, if that was still in effect. The one thing I do want to add with the example I gave, if I bid over to this other route for a Thursday, as I mentioned, if you volunteer for Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, you get that benefit of that 45K if they have to cut your route if you go overburdened. Because I'm bidding onto a route that has an existing Thursday, I didn't volunteer for it, so I don't get that benefit. It's only if you volunteered to take that midweek relief day that you get that extra benefit.
All right. Now we're going to go on to the second part of this one. And this second suggestion. In our office, our supervisor redid the matrix by wiping the board clean and starting from scratch. Yep, that was a no-no. Afterwards, we found out that someone was bumped from their primary. This has since been corrected. Thank you. I'm glad it has been corrected. When a supervisor decides to redo the matrix, the primaries stay the same. Unless if they have a vacancy and somebody wants to move a route, whatever. But there's no bumping of primaries when you redo a matrix. Plain and simple. If that happens in an office,
third choice.
yes, if a primary bump happens, contact your designated union rep right away. But yes, it's basically going in and changing the secondaries and the thirds, the second and thirds. And it should be offered up by seniority and down the line to the junior RCA, which basically gets what's left.
Should only happen when there is a change in relief carriers.
Carriers, right.
Yes. Whether
Whenever
one goes
one
regular,
comes in, one leaves.
Yep.
One goes regular, one becomes a PTF. The
Yes.
matrix should be redone. And the PTF can only take routes that do not have RCAs on them.
Correct. So don't
So if
let
they take your route
management.
for a PTF, contact your local designated union representative, because that's not right. They cannot take your primary without your permission.
Correct. All right. Plain and simple matrix. There is a 20-page matrix guidelines out there. It is available on the NRLCA site under the Steward Reference Guide. Hit the letter M for matrix, and there's all sorts of info on how a matrix should be done. All right. This last one from this person. Return to sender certified mail should have customer signature upon return. Yes. Some are just scanning return to sender and putting in mailbox. Some others, including a moderator, sign it themselves and place in mailbox. Recently had a challenge a postmaster on this, and she agreed after a meeting with somebody. Wink, wink. Okay. Yes. Certified mail at time of delivery, no matter who it goes to, whether it's the recipient or the sender, gets a signature. Plain and simple. Anything else, guys, on that one?
Yeah, and that's extra credit on your
Yeah, you
on
get that
your
accountable credit.
evaluation. You get that accountable credit if you get the sender to sign for it.
Yes.
And it's the same with the green card on the back. Scan that
Now,
prepaid acceptance.
I'm going to apologize
Carrier discretion.
to the person that sent this one to me on May 13th. I was out running my primary and my aux route that day, so I didn't get a chance. I was going to get back to her and I didn't. I apologize, but we're going to address it now. She starts off by saying that I love your podcast. There's so much good information. I'd like to point out that I feel like sometimes too much blame is placed on the carrier and not enough is placed on the extremely flawed system. Yes, we can agree in most instances. With that being said, I'd like to get your guys' opinion on something just to help me clarify what happened too and how I might fix my route if it's at all possible. I've been doing most of the rec scans for the last year on my route, though I've only fairly recently learned about the Rural Reach scan. My route started as an aux that was created after the 2018, excuse me. As of October of 2021, it was made a full route after taking pieces off of other overburdened routes. I was awarded the route and became regular in January of 2022. Congratulations. I was also the sub on the route when it was the aux since mid-2020. So I know the proper scans have been done on parts of it that I have had since I've had them. I fairly recently, November, had a new apartment complex go active and started moving people in. It is not yet at full capacity, but it's getting close. At this point, maybe 3/4 full. Am I correct that I will not get full credit for delivery until the count after the 1-year mark of the full delivery of this place? Also, with those boxes being considered active on my route since November, but not having full residency yet, could be hurting my coverage factor? Could this have something to do with my route going from being a massively overburdened 48K, 61.26 standard hours, to a 40K that I just barely scraped into? My route is also a very heavy CBU route. Out of 840 active boxes, 460 are CBU. I cannot make my new eval time, so I want some hope that this will get straightened out because I love my job. I've always felt like I was pretty good at it, but now I just feel like I'm terrible at it. Sorry for the long message. All right, couple things in there, guys.
First thing is the CBUs. First thing
Yes.
right off the bat, she said CBUs, and that's the biggest hurting thing in this whole evaluation system. It's the most flawed part of this evaluation system. For starters, one of the things that we've been told is that if the first address in a CBU is vacant, the entire CBU is considered vacant, even if you have active addresses in it, which shouldn't be happening. We group our mailboxes together out on the street for curbside delivery, and it doesn't do that, but yet it's doing it to all the CBUs, and that is hurting a lot of routes. That's part of the reason why you went to a 40K. And yes, you are also correct that not having a year worth of data for those apartments hurts your route, because it goes back to all the data for the past 52 weeks, supposedly. I've heard that some of it's 13 weeks, some of it's 52 weeks, depends on who you ask, use carrier discretion. But the biggest flaw in this entire system has been the CBUs. And that has hurt more routes than anything else, even the lower box volume, even the mileage system. CBUs have killed the rural routes big time. And I'm sorry that it happened to you. Yes, you're going to be going over your evaluation. It's going to happen, unfortunately, because you have a route that is bigger than what it was evaluated for. But as your volume goes along and this apartment complex fills up, especially if they're long-term tenants, it's going to benefit the route in the long run. And hopefully by the count in this October, you'll see an improvement in the numbers. And hopefully if they fix the CBU issue, it'll really raise the numbers for everybody. We hope, supposedly.
And so that, and if you said you started getting deliveries in November, by the September count, October evaluation, you'll have
Nearly a
almost
full year.
52 weeks. yeah, almost 52 weeks worth of data for at least the first unit. So, and I don't know what with the new system, what they have in play for activating new addresses, in the interim. Like with the old system, you add them to your edit book, you add them to your portable 3, it would give you credit. I would presume by activating midway that there's something that would start giving you credit for the new addresses. But again, I haven't heard anything one way or another about that. I
Anybody
don't know if
else?
any of you guys have.
All right, one more thing we're going to touch on before we wind down. This was another message I received this morning. Could you please remind everyone to vote for the national delegates and to stop voted for very, very old retirees? Alabama just mailed out their delegate ballots, by the way, people. And we have
Pennsylvania did too.
Pennsylvania did too. Illinois are dropped in the mail. Michigan should probably be going out soon.
Carolina's going out this week.
Please vote for delegates. If you're in our Facebook group under the featured post, you will find information about people, at least names anyways. Yes,
People that are in the
please.
group that put their name there.
If you don't recognize names on there, 90% of people have social media. You could even do a Google search. Do a little research, ask your coworkers, ask somebody you may know, that may know them on down the line. I mean, social media, obviously, people are going to ask questions there. Use your discretion on that, but please vote for your national delegates. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, who not to vote for. That's your own personal choice, but please vote.
And remember, the people you vote for are the ones that are going to make the choices at the national level for you. They're going to make the choices for you at the state level if you had state voting for that. So you want to vote for people that may think like you do. So if you can do your research. Check out previous meeting minutes, things like that. See how people voted. There's a lot of records out there of stuff that anybody can find pretty easily in a lot of places. So if you get that ballot, only vote the names you want to go to national. There are people that are paid to go to national already. So make sure you know who that is that's going to national on a paid trip, whether it be state members or national, like your district reps, people like that are paid to go already. Vote for people. If you know an RCA that you like that's running for national delegate, vote for them. Let's get some younger people up there too.
Let's get new people.
Even if you don't know them, but you know they're a new RCA, help them up. Get them up there.
And again, I am not bashing my retirees in any form. I have utmost respect for my retirees. You've done your time. There are some really awesome retirees that are still out there fighting the good fight for the carriers that are in the trenches today. Those guys are awesome. We also have retirees that have never handled a scanner, have never handled DPS, that have never handled Amazon, that are clueless to what the carriers are what we are going through today. So please keep in mind of that as well when you're voting.
The retirees are just as important, because guess what? At some point, you too could be a retiree. And they are going to have the opinions for retirement and what retirement should be for you. Is our retirees will have that opinion. So they need to go just as much as regular carriers, RCAs, ARCs, anybody on the rural craft. They have just as much say as the person next to them in this union. Because we're all in this together. We're all one team here.
Bill, you got anything to add on that, dear?
Okay, on a personal note, in the state of Pennsylvania, we're allowed to vote up to, I believe it's 44 candidates. That does not mean you have to vote the 44. Select the ones that you feel are aligned to your interests in regards to the union and the post office. The retirees, again, there are some very good ones that attend there. We have one in Pennsylvania. I'll give a shout out to Wild Bill, who usually gets a suite and then has a flip chart in his room with a magic marker, and he's got, oh God, gazillions of tons of information. He used to do the Eagle Fest, and it was a big information, type get together. And let me tell you, the resolutions that man pumps out, from that Eagle Fest and at the national convention would stupefy a good carrier, knowledgeable in the union.
Huh?
Some of the other retirees, I'll withhold my comments and judgment because I don't want to get more fan mail. But the fact of the matter is that, some of these people have served their time. They've done their duty. Let younger people get involved because we are having a drain on our union. The number of inquiries of how to quit the union is staggering. And as last year, they noted they lost 5,000 members last year. 5,000 members.
And honestly, guys, and I'm gonna bring this up, but decertifying the union is not the answer.
No, it is not.
You would be
No.
left at the mercy of the post office, and you really do not want that. The
And the
answer is
first thing they would get rid of, is the retirement from the post office.
you'd lose
They would
your
get rid of
pensions.
everything they could. They would cut your pay,
Layoff clause.
increase your hours, and increase your workload.
And decrease your benefits.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a double-edged sword to think about
Or it would
getting out of
go
the union completely.
by way of like the highway contract carriers.
Yep,
Exactly.
Yes.
Ask a highway contract carrier what it's like to work for the Postal Service.
I have one in my office. Trust me, he's very opinionated and he's not afraid to say it.
I've
The
got
union,
three.
whether you like the union or not, is a very, very important part of this craft.
I've got three highway contractors in my office, and if you took the F-bomb out of his language, he wouldn't be able to talk.
Right? It's but guys, yeah, this is where voting for the proper delegates vote in general. When you only have 20% of the membership voting for anything, whether it's a contract or delegates, I mean that's only 20% that
Or
you're
national-
allowing. Yeah,
Or national officers.
that is voting for a contract that's voting for national officers. And when you're voting the same, and I'm going to repeat myself like I've said on several episodes in the past, when you're voting for the same people, you're going to get the same results.
And we don't care whether you like or hate the people that are in the office. They're just there temporarily.
They're elected.
The union is every single one of us, dues paying and non-dues paying. ARC, RCA, PTF, regular carrier, retiree. We are all the Rural Carrier Union. We are all the NRLCA. And our voice is what propels us through the next contract. And your voice is either being a delegate or voting for a delegate. being involved in the union is the most important job you have at the Postal Service, because the union is you. And the union is only as strong as its least informed member.
Oh, hell, we're in trouble then.
Sorry, Bill, I had to call you out on that one. The least informed member. Sorry.
Oh, God.
But on that note, yeah, the key thing is to vote. I've already seen a couple people say, well, I didn't recognize any names on there, so I threw my ballot out.
Then put your name on there next year.
Exactly.
Put your name on there next year.
When I get my ballot and I recognize most of the names in general, just because I am very active, I go to everything, whether I'm a delegate or I'm paid to go or not, and I'm paying my own way. Yes, as an RCA, I will pinch. I go to everything. I mean, you can ask, well, James. James sees me at everything that since he started to go. I go to mid-states, I go to all the boosters. I started going to my state board meetings because our state has open board meetings. I go and observe those. I go to my regional meetings, and maybe next year I may start and do regional meeting hopping just to see. That's a goal of mine. And then I go to national. I paid my own way to national last year. I wasn't paid to go. I was an alternate delegate. It is what it is.
Part of that is you went just in case they needed you as a delegate too.
Yes.
But until they actually decide you're a delegate, you're unpaid to go.
For our state, yes. Every state is different in how they do that.
Every state is different, but Michigan actually pays their delegates to go.
Yep. Alternates do not get paid to go. However, I do go. I was an alternate last year. I was a delegate in 2019 in Grapevine. I got bumped up to delegate like the week just prior to leaving. It was just a matter of days. In 2018, which was my first national when it was in Grand Rapids then, I was an alternate. I was too far down to get bumped up, but that was my first national experience. So I had that under my belt. You don't have to be a delegate or an alternate to attend national. Any dues-paying member can attend national. You just have to register ahead of time. You can't vote, but you can at least see the process. You can see what everybody's talking about. You can make those notes on who's voting what down or who's voting what up, or you can do that process without actually being a delegate. But again, you don't have the voting right as a non-delegate, but you can be there and witness it. And sometimes if something is a good point, they may ask to suspend the rules and allow a non-delegate to speak at the microphone. That does happen. Even on the national level, it does happen. So, there is that possibility as well.
And remember,
and on top of that, you can learn so much about the union through that process.
It is really a mental overload.
And it's not all the partying that a lot of people say either.
Everybody sees, everybody sees the photos from the banquets and people chilling out on the patios or rooms or whatever. You guys, when you see those, that is the unwind after sitting on a convention floor for 8 hours.
Or more. 8 to 12 hours.
Fridays go until elections are over, and it can go pretty late. Caucus night will go super late as well, because depending on how many people are running for office that go through caucus and how long it's going to take. I think it was like 10:30 last year when I got done. 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And that's for a long night. And then Friday is elections, and that starts in the morning. But while they're counting ballots in between elections and stuff, that's when they're going through resolutions or appeals or whatever else they have on the floor.
New business.
And they do, and then once the ballots are counted and they finish that one up and announce whoever won that one, and then they go on to start the next election. And then why the teller committee has are counting votes, then, we're back to doing business again. So Fridays can get pretty long, especially if you have a lot of people running for like executive committeeman, for example. And if you got 4 or 6 people running for one position, and it's going to keep going until you have a winner, because it is by a 2/3 majority. Am I correct?
I believe
On the
so.
votes?
On
Yeah.
that.
I believe so.
Yes. So,
And I want to make this point is that everybody that's listening or here's this information on our podcast, please remember, you can't fight for yourself, for your rights, for your pay, for let's say integrity in your office in regards to how you're treated if you're not part of the union. If you're not in the fight as a union member, you have no fight. You're just a ride along. So please consider that. All these people who are considering dropping out of the union, you will have no say in what happens down the road. It'll be dictated by those in the union. So if you want a dog in this fight, stay in the fight.
You won't be able to vote for your national delegates. You won't be able to put forth resolutions at your county meetings or state meetings. You won't be able to access the NRLCA website. Your local designated union steward is required by law to support you to the fullest extent when you have an issue in the office, but you don't have access to all the information unless you get it from your designated union representative or from a coworker that is part of the NRLCA. Otherwise, you'll have to get it through sources third party. And that's what you'll be doing by going to your designated union rep, is you'll be getting it through a third party source, because they'll get it from national and then disperse it to everybody. But you won't have any way to say, I want to put a resolution forth to prevent major cuts to people's pay without being part of the union. You won't be able to turn around and say, I want Bill to be the president of the NRLCA.
Yeah.
Or I want Kristen to be the president of the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
For example. Those are examples. I'm not saying whether they're running for those positions or not, but the first step any member should do, go attend your state convention.
Yes.
That's the first step you need to do. State conventions are starting up.
If you want to see how the business side of stuff works, start with a state convention. Boosters are good. They're informational. On the national level, your regional meetings are awesome. They're informational. You get more time, ask questions, get the information. But your state conventions
Get the telemanager off.
and national conventions are business. That's really what they are. They are the business end of the union, whether it's the state level or the national level. I would start with a state convention. As Josh said, as a first timer at national last year, he goes, this is like a state convention on steroids.
Oh God.
It is. It is. I mean, you think about it. When you go to your state conventions, you may have a few hundred people there, and you go through the business stuff. But when you get to the national end and you're dealing with 1,100 delegates, that's just the delegates. That's not, all their union members that are attending as guests and guests. I mean, you're looking at 2,000 people just sitting in a convention in one room. Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, that could be a bit overwhelming if you're not used to that type of stuff. So,
and I know from our state convention that one night we went until 8:30 at night. We started at 8 a.m.
Yeah. I've been, what was it? Grand Rapids 2018. It was 9:30 at night when we got out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you still had stuff to do.
I still had to drive 3.5 hours back home, you know,
Yeah,
by the time we were done. It, you know,
and if it goes until it's done, you have to sit there through it all and
yes.
make your votes when you're a delegate, because it's
Yep.
very important as a delegate to have the voice of your constituents, the people who elected you. Just like politics, the people that elected you, you have to vote in the way that you think your delegates in your state would want you to vote on that stuff. It's not about what you think is right. It's about what you think is best for everybody else.
And
And
I,
as
you know,
in the state of Pennsylvania, you must attend all meetings, open to
Mm-hmm.
close, to get paid as a delegate.
yes.
Yep.
Yep. Same in Michigan. Same in
Same in
Michigan.
Michigan.
Same,
That
same
go,
here.
yep. Yeah. You know, and I'm gonna say this, you know, I've never been one. I am really comfortable talking to like a smaller group, you know, like my office or my old office, you know, maybe a dozen, couple dozen people, whatever. You know, that to me is not intimidating. But last year, going up onto the podium, my first time up there nominating Bill for president last year, and you know, and everything happened so fast. I didn't even grab my notes off of my chair. And I'm standing up there with the light shining in my eyes and 2,000 people standing in front of me. I admit I was intimidated. Everybody said I sounded great, but to myself, I was such a ball of nerves. And then when Bill went up and nominated me, and I had to go up there and give my speech for running for vice president, and I didn't even have my notes with me. And I completely winged this bullshit.
And did it well, and did it very well.
Thank you. And then caucus on Thursday night. You know, I had an idea of what I wanted to talk about. I literally, between the convention when we recessed for the day, and what, with the hour and a half that we had before caucuses started, I literally was sitting at Bill and I's booth
Hmm.
out what I was going to talk about during caucus. I was that unprepared. But I winged it. And by the time that I got done and got through caucuses, you know, I had the smaller groups with the smaller states, and then you get back into the main convention floor with SAC because it's absolutely huge. And you're dealing with what I had to deal with in there. By the time it came down to the elections and concession speech, you know, I went back up to the podium and I was completely comfortable. It was not intimidating to me at one point or another. I worked through that.
And the easiest thing to remember is that they're carriers, just like you.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, if anybody saw me at mid states, you know, the first thing on our first little seminar thing sat there, I was sitting with my Iowa friends. And then I'd be out at break time sitting with my Wisconsin friends. And then, you know, I'm roaming around talking to my Kansas friends and Ohio friends, and, you know, talking to the North Dakota president out on cigarette break. I am one of those that, so once I've gotten to know more people and talking to others, you know, and once you get up there, it's a completely different experience, but it was rather humbling. And then you just get to realize, you know what? These people are just like me. And
Hmm.
we're all in this together. And you're just talking on a bigger platform to your family. All right, I'm done rambling. So we're going to
And
wind
that's
this
what we are.
down.
That's what
We
we
are.
are, brothers and sisters in the rural craft.
Exactly. And, you know,
I'm, a,
I have met
I'm
some
adopted.
really. You're adopted.
You're adopted. We know.
I'm not going to say what I'm thinking right now. We might have to edit it out.
We've done pretty good not having to edit anything this episode.
No, we've been good. I was just going to say Bill's my adopted sugar daddy. But but no, it's, you know, we're one big family, and I love the convention and the regional conferences atmosphere because you get to connect with your brothers and sisters from all over.
And
You
you
know,
can
it's
hear what they're dealing with just as much as you are.
and when you think your office is bad, trust me, there's always somebody up at the microphone with something worse than what you're going through.
Yep.
I have to
Amen to that.
remind my coworkers all the time going, I went through worse at my previous office or I went through much better, but trust me guys, I've had stories on the national level that'll make your head spin.
Yep.
I gotta
So,
I get those coffee mugs made up that say you can't make this shit up, you know?
Exactly. I
'Cause
mean, you
you
really
yeah.
you can't. And
But
but okay, so we're gonna wind down because we've been on here for a while tonight. And James, any your final comments and thoughts for the evening?
well, the reminder to everybody is state conventions are coming up. So if you want to attend, remember that union activities are one of the few things that can be approved in extreme advance beyond the 60 days. And they should be automatically approved as long as there's relief available. That's the hardest part, is having relief available. But talk with your local designated union rep if you want to go to your conventions. See what you can do to get yourself to go to the conventions. Whether you take care of it yourself or you get paid by your state or county or whatever to go, try and find a way to get there, because it's a boatload of information that you can use for this craft. We're all in this together. And like I said, the weakest part of the union is the least informed member. So get yourself informed, ask questions, get answers. Whether you're dues paying or not, you are our brothers and sisters in the rural craft, and we're here for you.
Josh, your turn, dude.
To follow James's sentiment, like you said, there's a lot of good information that comes out of the conventions and seminars. There's also, back to with Kristen's ramblings, there's also in the downtime, a lot of camaraderie and new friendships that are made. I made a lot of good a lot of friends, met a lot of people that I've been interacting with in the last few years on Facebook at the national convention, and got to hang out and talk to them and actually put an actual face to the comments, or the few that I actually talked to on the phone, to ask questions here or there. Like my cohorts had said earlier, getting out of the union isn't the answer. Getting more involved to the extent that you can is. Even if it's just filling out the ballot for national delegates, voting on the national contract, which come February, they're going to start negotiations for our next contract. Try and have a good week. If you get overwhelmed, take a step back, take a deep breath, step back in there, and we'll see you next time.
Elder, you're up.
Me? It's my turn? Oh boy.
Yes,
oh, boy.
you get to talk. It's all
Oh
you.
my God. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, we had an association with an individual a while back, and it took a bit of a sour turn because of the fact that we were expected to do things that would jeopardize our standing in the union. And we took the stand that we were not going to do that because of the fact that we can't fight if we are outside of the union. If we are no longer members, and I do mean members because of, the position that's individuals taking, we wouldn't be here podcasting on our own time, giving you information to help you do your jobs, to help protect yourselves, protect your paycheck. And that's the type of individuals that we have here. We are, let me say, morally and ethically inclined to be, the best source possible for you to get information to help protect your job, to help protect your sanity. And I can say that with complete confidence.
And we're
But
entertaining too.
yes, but the thing of it is that, we have an obligation to everybody who listens, and we don't know you all, you don't know us, but we're here for your benefit. And the only benefit that we can provide is if we're in the union. And the union, like James would say, is only as strong as its weakest link. And the problem with that statement is that often the weakest link is the one that's never heard from. They're the ones who suffer in silence and say, "Oh, well, the union won't do anything," or this. I filed a grievance, it didn't go my way. Keep filing. Okay, don't stop. Trust me. From a guy who's killed more trees than the Brazilian rainforest filing grievances, file. Protect yourself. Stand up for yourself. Find somebody to stand up for you. Find somebody to help you and educate you. Learn. I have carriers in my office won't spend 5 minutes out of the day checking on the resources available to them. And they come running to me and say, Bill. Well, I gladly answer the questions. But the fact of the matter is these resources are available to you if you're in the union. So, folks, if you want to protect your job, if you want to protect your pay, if you want to protect your future, then learn about your craft, learn about the contract, learn the M38, the ALM, learn about the National Labor Relations Board in regards to, how you're treated at work, whether they're withholding pay. Any of the subject matters that concern you can be resolved if you look into it. Don't depend on everybody else to protect your job. That's not their responsibility. It falls onto you. Like I always say, go out there, do the best job you can to the best of your ability. Be safe, go home. And like I say, you're the most important delivery today. I don't care about the mail. I don't care about the packages. Get home to your loved ones. That's the most important thing to me. Because guess what, folks? You can't be replaced.
Absolutely.
And take everything we say with carrier discretion.
Remember, we are here for entertainment purposes only.
And it's not a Crown Royal, too.
Yeah, I may have dipped into that Crown Royal a little too much this evening, but it's all good. On that note, guys.
What are your thoughts, Kristen?
What are my thoughts? Oh, I could go on and on.
Oh, let's not go that far.
Short and sweet. Short and sweet. Give us an outro.
Guys. It's a new week, and it's spring in full force, and I'm loving it. Though I don't really care for the shorts one day and bundle up the next day right now that's going on in Northeast Michigan, but
that's Michigan.
That is definitely Michigan. But yeah, definitely, guys, go out there, do the jobs to your fullest and best abilities, and, get home safely to everyone. Conventions are coming up. Delegate ballots are out for national. Please vote. That's all I ask, is that you please vote. Even if you only recognize one name on there, and you know what, I really like what this person stands for, then just vote for the one person. You don't have to vote for whatever number of delegates that your state gets. Everybody's different based on the number of members in the state. So on that note, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you back next week.